Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Ashton Gene Lewis. This is a little podcast I call the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. Obviously, I'm the broke boy in question, but we are slowly but surely trying to change that with the most elaborate Ponzi scheme that I can think of. The most effective use of my time is a get-rich-quick scheme, and that's becoming a podcaster because there aren't enough of those in the world. Anyway, you guys know the deal. Sorry, I was doing social media stuff. You guys know the deal overall. Last week, I did reactions, and I talked about the league as a whole. This week, what we are doing is going back to the original format, the way that we're supposed to be doing, the way the show is used to be run. It's supposed to be run overall. It's supposed to be a lot less of my thoughts and a lot more of my thoughts on the actual games that got played. So we're going to talk about those games. It's going to be a lot of fun. As soon as I get these tweets out, you guys know the deal. Anyway, if you are watching this right now, first of all, shout out to you. I really appreciate every person that takes even a little bit of their time to watch this and put some love behind it. I appreciate it, man. I put a lot of effort into it. Like I said at the top of every single show, I watch every single play that is played when it comes to NFL football for that week. Even last week when I was doing the reactions, when I watched every single play and gave my thoughts on every single game and really kind of recapped what happened to each one of those games as to why that happened. We are getting towards the back end of the season, so you're going to see a lot less games that are going to get you're going to see more games that get less attention because there are teams that are starting to kind of fold into the front of the classroom and start to become the kind of the team that we think they can be when it's all said and done. And we're checking the stream to make sure the stream is up. And it is streaming in 720p, which apparently was an issue last week. It started off with like major glitches across the board, and then I don't think it cleared up, which is weird. Anyway, we have our categories that we deal with. Also, I'm still in the hit zero real quick. I'm still in the wrong mode. The show's officially started, so we can move on to the stuff that move on to the mode that actually matters, where we can see more of my face and obviously more of my background. Apparently, learned this one recently. Funko Pop is going out of business, which is bad for me because if you are one of my friends, typically what I get you for Christmas is a Funko Pop of something that you enjoy a lot. So don't know if that's true. Don't know what the deal with that is, but it could mean a massive sale, and then it means next year I have to figure out something else to get my friends. I'll have to actually get them thoughtful gifts instead of little bobbleheads of characters that they enjoy from their TV shows that they're really passionate about. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, let's talk about football. Let's do that. Take it from the top. You guys know the deal. We have 4 different categories. We have Snooze Fest, which are the worst games of the week typically. They're the games that were the most boring for me to watch, whether it be because the football being played was actually really boring, or a team just got absolutely dismantled. Like one team showed up and the other team was there. You know, there was a football game being played, and unfortunately, only one football team showed up. That does happen a lot more in the NFL than we care to admit, but it is a thing that happens. We have the Heartbreakers category. Those are the games that either broke the fans of the heart, my heart myself, or you visibly saw the fans that you visibly saw the team get their heart broken throughout the course of this game from how badly their season has been going, and then of course how badly they got their ass whooped in this game. Other games, the oh my category, games that have interesting results, not necessarily just 100% upsets, but games that have results that have drastic ramifications for other teams, games that have interesting results in terms of like a team that we've been kind of watching week in and week out kind of put it together, finally get everything going in the same direction, and they look like one of the best teams in the NFL. That has happened. And then the final category is the this is what we're here for category. The games that are so good that I enjoy them every single week. I say they're the best games that the league has to offer. I also say that they are the games that make fans, like create NFL football fans. So we'll see if that's true this week. You let me know what you thought about this week's NFL games. I know it was difficult for some people to watch because there were games on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, and Monday. So don't forget that magical date. There's actually laws in America that prevent up to a certain date for professional football to be played on Fridays because they want to make sure that high school sports gets their just due in terms of like people not having to choose between watching high school football and professional football. And I just like to say this. I get that in some way it could affect the crowds, but I'll say this much. High school football fans are drastically different than NFL football fans. Just like college football fans and NFL football fans, there is some overlap, but there is very distinct. There's a lot of people in those singular circles for either college football or NFL football. So, and they both think each other are really funny because one is like, "Oh, you like watching App State play football," which, by the way, App State's really good at football up until like recently. You like watching App State play, a bunch of kids who are going to be accountants in like a year or whatever, which, by the way, accountant is a great career to find yourself in because you make a lot of money. It's not necessarily the most soul-crushing thing on the face of the planet, and you can probably get to a point where you own a boat, which if you're a fisherman guy or you live like in Florida or somewhere else where owning a boat is cool, that could help you out in the long run. But not everybody aspires to be an accountant, and there can only be so many accountants because there's only so much money to be made. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, right. College football fans think that NFL football fans are weird because they're not really down with the chaos. Like, there isn't as much chaos at the college football ranks as there is in the NFL. But, whatever. Everybody gets to do what they want to do on Saturdays and Sundays. All I know is I'm not a college football fan because I can't afford to have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then sometimes also double Saturdays taken up by football completely when the football season is going on. And then now the NBA season is going on. So it's basically like I'm back to watching sports every single day, which is a lot of fun, but it does take a lot of time out of my very semi-busy schedule. I am a broke boy. It's being broke is a very busy job, very difficult job, but somebody's got to do it. Moving on, we're almost at 10 minutes into introing the show. Make sure you hit like or subscribe. Actually, hit like and subscribe if you will. If you don't want to get notifications at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is when I typically start this show, unfortunately, I started today's show at 5 o'clock in the morning because despite the fact that I've been off work the last 2 days, I didn't watch vast majority of the games until today because that's what I do. That's what I do. I don't like myself, apparently, and I don't like sleep. Even though I will say the last, 3 nights I've been going to sleep at, midnight, which, if you know me, that's actually really good. If you got your Spotify Wrapped, send it to me on Instagram at @TheAshtonForever. I always like great insight into what people enjoy listening to. So I think a lot of people found out that I listen to smooth jazz or just jazz in general yesterday, which I think was shocking. By the way, Spotify, fuck you. Spotify gave me my listening age, and it was 82 because I've been listening to jazz for an hour every day for the past year. It helps me a lot. I listen to jazz when I watch football sometimes too. You should try it. It's a lot of fun. It's a beautiful, especially when you're in a quiet room. It is a beautiful way to listen to music and just enjoy not only instruments but also music can take you to places that you didn't think your mind could ever go. And jazz is, jazz changed the world and led us to the world that we live in today to a certain degree. So it is massively important. A lot of people say that jazz is the greatest contribution that the United States of America has ever given to the world. And I am one to say agree. Moving on, let's talk about football. Taking from the top on the snooze fest, I do have notes underneath the microphone. I do have notes on the dock. We're going to see how long it takes me to get to my notes and start talking about what happened in these games. So snooze fest off the top. This is probably the more interesting out of the 5 games that are in here. The Dolphins are still in competition to try and compete for a wild card spot. They are in the AFC East, which, in case you haven't been paying attention, and probably you're watching this show, so it's my job to actually inform you. The New England Patriots have the best record in the NFL overall. They have the best record in the AFC overall, and in case you couldn't piece together with the other 2 qualifiers, they have the best record in their division. And the Miami Dolphins are very far away from having 12 wins and competing with the Patriots. I will say they did give the Patriots one of their closer games that they've had all season. A lot of that has to do with divisional opponent familiarity. But for the most part, the Dolphins are solely focused on a wild card spot. If they're even focused on trying to actually make the playoffs to begin with, they know that they're a team that needs to reload at a lot of positions, key positions for sure. They need help at the offensive line spot. They might need help at the quarterback spot, but I think they're still trying to figure that out. They're still trying to figure out whether or not they're going to move on in terms of a lot of these wide receivers. Like Tyreek Hill is probably going to come back and be even slower than he was this year. A lot of people are saying that he was slower this year because he didn't reach like 20 miles per hour in open field like he has literally every season up until this one in the NFL. Some of that has to do with the offense. I will say this. Becoming a team that is more centered around Devon Achane is probably going to be a lot better for the Miami Dolphins in the current state of what they were doing, because we all saw in this game, and we've seen in about 8 other games this season as well. We're in week 11. Pretty much at some point during the game, the offense tries to drift away from the correct answer. The correct answer is give the ball to Achane. The correct answer is give the ball to Vaughn. And I'm not saying that just because I'm heavily biased. I covered Devon when he was in high school. He went to Thurgood Marshall High School here in Houston, Texas. Was a huge part of one of the best Fort Bend ISD high school football teams ever. And he's joining a legacy of one of many really ridiculously good running backs come out of Fort Bend ISD. Of course, the cream of the crop being Thurman Thomas, who is a NFL Hall of Famer, played for the Bills and stuff like that, whatever. Ironically enough, he is now caught up in the Bills brain rot victory shenanigans. If you don't follow the Bills on social media, they post like these victory videos that are so strange, but it's like deep fried brain rot memes that make no sense but make perfect sense all at the same time. And somehow Thurman Thomas is now wrapped up into it as a character in the back end story of the victory brain rot meme victory videos. Anyway, check it out. Try and check it out from the beginning and maybe you'll learn a thing or two. Whatever. What was I saying? Oh, the Dolphins. So in this situation, every single game this season, just like in this game, the Dolphins try to get to a point where they're trying to throw the ball. They're like, hey man, we should let Tua, because he does make a lot of money around here, and he is a competent quarterback in a lot of specific situations. He's very good at what he does. This game versus the Saints was not one of those. Tua threw one of the worst passes I've seen him throw this season. I'm not like a tactical mastermind. I have no background in coaching in the NFL. I've just been watching Tua like most of his NFL career. I actually watched Tua when he was in college because I watched the really good football teams in college and stuff like that. But he throws a duck of a pass to Jalen Waddle over the top of a defense where the safety, Jonas Sanker, our guy who we've talked about before, he just opened his hips and started running towards the pylon, and the ball just landed ever so gingerly in his hands, and the Saints immediately got back into this game. Vast majority of this game, final score is 21-17 if you can't see it on the scoreboard on the left of me, but for the right of you, I guess, I don't know. The thing to take away from this, the biggest issue was the inability for the Dolphins to pull away. The Dolphins have a very clearly defined game plan that they should be operating off of. And I'll say this much, there were some moments in this game where they were able to throw the ball around, get the ball to Malik Washington, who I think a lot of people have been waiting on him to emerge because of how well he played in the preseason and stuff like that. But Malik Washington, they got the ball to Jalen Waddle a bunch in this game. That is something we've all been waiting for, just because Jalen Waddle seems like he is a game changer overall. But Tua was struggling early in this one to get any passing consistency, and the Saints defense has been good this year, but I wouldn't say that they're back-breaking good in terms of hold the Miami Dolphins to 21 points in this game good. By the way, the Dolphins had 19 points up until the final play of this game, but we'll get to that in a little bit later. The Saints have Tyler Schott, who's been going out there. He's a rookie quarterback playing for the Saints. Remember, his first start ever with both of these teams coming off of a bye, by the way. remember his first start as the Saints quarterback ever. He got the most passing yards, and I think he had like the most passing touchdowns for a Saints rookie quarterback since like the 60s or something like that, since the team like first started. It was some dude, I remember looking him up, and his photo was like in black and white or whatever. And he may have been, I think he was a quarterback before Arch Manning was a quarterback for the Saints. Whatever. Moving on, the Saints offense. Look, man, the run game is like non-existent. Don't know if it's a mixture of the struggles of Alvin Kamara, like personally, or struggling to connect with the offensive line up front, but their run game is just non-existent, bro. And Schott was doing a really good job of throwing the ball on the run, which I think kept a lot of these drives alive. He was doing a good job of throwing the ball vertically, but missing Rashid Shaheed because he's been traded away to my Seattle Seahawks. And I'm a Seahawks and a Texans fan, in case people were wondering. But yeah, since he's been traded away, there's a big part of their offense that's been missing. They had three like legitimate powerhouse type wide receivers with Juwan Johnson and Chris Olave plus Rashid Shaheed, and now they're down to two. Which when you have a good quarterback, you're supposed to be able to make it work when you have two high quality pass catching targets or whatever. But for the most part, a lot of this Saints game was them struggling and their defense backing them up, their defense carrying them vast majority of this game, and they put them in a position to where they were like legitimately close to actually winning this one, which is more of a travesty for what the Dolphins did, like as an offense overall. As you can tell, I mean, the 21 points, like I said, they scored 19 points in this game, and as we all know, we've been talking about it all season. It's like the running joke that I have. They take their union mandated lunch break around like the second and third quarter of every single game, and they don't come back to like the middle of the fourth. And that's, they took an extra break. They took an extra long lunch break after coming back from the bye, which is kind of crazy. It's like coming back from vacation and then taking an hour and a half lunch break on your first day back, which honestly, in a better world, we all could do that. Just be on vacation and come back and then take huge lunch breaks, whatever. This game comes down to an attempted 2-point conversion to make this close and then go for an onside kick that is intercepted by it's intercepted by Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Tyler Dotson, who's the linebacker for the Miami Dolphins, actually calls the play because the headset, the green dot headset and his helmet malfunctions, and so he calls his own defense from inside the huddle, and it sets up Minkah Fitzpatrick to intercept Tyler Schott and run it all the way back to make it, instead of 19-17 with an attempted onside on the way, it is 21-17. Attempted onside failed, even though the Saints did recover an onside kick earlier in this game, which was kind of crazy. But if there was one, by the way, this game got Devon Achane something that he probably should get every single week, and it was AFC Offensive Player of the Week. Dude's ridiculous. Hopefully he's going to be an All-Pro. It seems like it's really tough at the running back position this year at the All-Pro spot, with Jonathan Taylor probably being RB1. So hopefully All-Pro second team, or do they have fullback? Do they have double running back? They don't. It's maybe they'll change it because now 31 personnel is coming back. Whatever. That being said, overall, this game, terrible showing for the Dolphins, but they had more talent than the Saints overall, and it panned out in the end. As we keep seeing that happen, the Dolphins keep their playoff hopes alive. For now, they do have they still have divisional matchups left in their last 5 games of the season, and the New Orleans Saints join the ever-growing list of teams that are statistically eliminated from the playoffs. Congratulations. They are competing for a top 5 draft pick, I want to say, because they haven't traded their picks away. Moving on, Jaguars, Tennessee Titans. Speaking of top 5 draft picks, the Titans trying to get that number 1, baby, and everybody's already talking about it, man. Like, when does this information come out? I feel like I hear it like tertiary, like weeks later. Apparently, the plan is to get the number 1 pick and then trade down for it because people believe in Cam Ward, which is great, fantastic, because it's been a rough year for Cam Ward, and I think the mental damage, and maybe it's mental growth that has happened for Cam Ward this year. The mental damage that has been done to Cam Ward is irreparable, especially considering now the team has to go out and find a new head coach before the draft starts, and then also find somebody to actively trade down with them, knowing that they are not really gung-ho on using the first overall pick. But we'll see. Only time will tell, because everybody argues that the number one pick overall should always be a quarterback, just because that's the most game-changing position that you can possibly draft. But I tend to agree on the concept of trading down and getting more draft picks, because the Titans have so many holes and so many gaps. Have you noticed I haven't talked anything about this game at all? The thing happened again with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the thing is every time the Jacksonville Jaguars generate 1 or 2 turnovers in a game, they win it. And then, of course, when your opponent is the Tennessee Titans, you typically win that one too. But the Jaguars won this game, and at no point was it close. At no point. So, saved you like 3 hours of your life. Anyway, this one's disappointing just because the Titans, the Titans have gone like a month and a half. They've gone multiple months this season without scoring a touchdown. And it looks like the streak continues, man. They started the streak over because they did score a touchdown versus the Seattle Seahawks. So that was pretty impressive to score versus the Seahawks, a significantly better team than the Jaguars, and then not be able to score versus the Jags. The multiple turnovers probably had something to do with it. The 49ers played the Browns, and I know everybody wants to talk about the thing, so I'll talk about the thing. For the most part, so far we've seen Shedeur Sanders play 2 games as a starting QB, and I've seen Dylan Gabriel, and like I said, I've watched every single play of the NFL season so far. I've seen Dylan Gabriel play 4 or 5 games at the starting quarterback spot. I'll say this much. The offensive line that the Browns have is a massive disadvantage for any rookie quarterback, regardless of talent level or skill level, regardless of the people that you're throwing the ball to. The inconsistency of the Browns' offensive line is brutal, especially when you're a rookie quarterback trying to figure out how to play QB in the NFL, which, guess what? That's what Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders are. Dylan Gabriel played much tougher competition in his 5-game stint as his starting QB. And Shedeur Sanders so far has played the Las Vegas Raiders, probably the worst team in the NFL, TBH, worst team in the NFL. And then they've also played the San Francisco 49ers, one of the best teams in the NFL. And they scored 8 points. I don't know why it says 6 on there. I'm sorry. It's 26-8. They did get a 2-point conversion. There were like 3 drives where the Browns looked good in this one. That was quickly overridden by the fact that the Browns fumbled the ball 4 times throughout the course of this game. There was like a key moment in this one as well. It was like towards the end of the third quarter. So this is the series of events that happened. It was the Browns are driving. They get in a 4th and 1 situation. They're in their own territory. They're on like their own 30-something yard line or whatever. And they go for a tush push, and they use the tush push alt version, alternate uniform tush push, where they use a tight end. So they use their tight end, Harold Fannin, guy who's bigger, stronger, obviously spends a lot of time running and stuff like that. He ducks his head, and for what would become one of 2 times where this happens this weekend, the tight end fumbles the snap because most tight ends don't work on most tight ends don't work on receiving under center snaps when they're in NFL practices and stuff like that, especially not after they come out of motion and they're trying to figure out how to time up a tush push. He fumbles the snap. That is recovered by the San Francisco 49ers. They score, I think it's 6 plays later. They kick the ball off. The ball is fielded at like the 6-yard line or something like that because the returner couldn't figure out if the ball was going to go out of bounds completely or if it was going to bounce inbounds and potentially bounce back into the field of play away from him. So he fielded it and ran it out of bounds at the 6-yard line. That goes horribly wrong. They end up almost getting a holding call in the end zone to make it a safety, but don't you worry. They end up punting the ball away. They give it to Sky Moore. Sky Moore runs it back for like 2 yards. Those 2 yards turn into something. You know what I mean? They turn into a touchdown 10 plays later. And then there is a punt return that is muffed and then recovered by the Browns. And it was just like three drives in a row that all had like some weird thing that happened, and it also created the separation that led to the 49ers winning. They finished this at the point after all three of those happened, the 49ers were up 23-8. And then they would score another field goal and finish the game off. This game was relatively close to the beginning, and then that series of plays started to pile up, and the mistakes that were happening were not induced by the 49ers. They were bad plays that were happening from the Browns fucking up, and the 49ers didn't need help beating the Browns, but they got it, and the Browns let them, mosey on through and move on to the next week. And I don't even think anybody got hurt with the 49ers, so that's actually, I take that back. Juwan Jennings did get hurt. I don't think anybody else got hurt. Apparently, Juwan Jennings is like the dirtiest dude. There was like a whole situation where multiple players came out about why they were getting in Juwan Jennings' face after a bunch of plays, because he was saying his trash talk apparently is insane, which is probably why he's got so many injuries all the time, because people are just literally trying to crack the shit out of him every chance they can. So, but yeah, 49ers move on yet again. The NFC West is hell. I'm a Seahawks fan. It sucks being here. The Cardinals are probably good enough to be a team in another division and still make the playoffs. In this division, not even close. They've already been eliminated. They got eliminated this week. But, yeah, the NFC is hell, and it's going to come down to, like, the last 2 weeks of the season, which is going to suck because it means that somebody's going to get fucked out of their spot, because the chances that three NFC West teams end up advancing on, meaning that somebody wins the division and then takes the 2 wildcard spots, is a little up in the air. Although I will say, 49ers on the way up, Seahawks still trending up, Rams, big arrow down. If you're doing your power rankings, write that one down. Put that on a card. Anyway, that's what it's been looking like. I'm not in charge of that kind of stuff. That's just the vibes that are going on right now, which doesn't mean anything, because next week they could win by like 40 points, and then nobody will remember how they lost to the Panthers this past week. Moving on, snooze fest game here. Chargers, Raiders. Interesting stuff. This game was not supposed to be close, and it technically never was. Kamani Vidal hopefully continues to get carries after Omarion Hampton comes back. And I have a strange feeling they're both about to get a shit ton of work, because Justin Herbert broke something in his hand during the course of this game, in the first quarter, by the way. So they took him in the back or whatever, and I'm assuming they knew his hand was broken. They taped it up, put a glove on it, and he spent most of the game trying to make sure that nothing touched his other hand. It was his non-throwing hand. He spent most of the game trying to make sure that nothing touched his non-throwing hand, which look, man, if you've ever broken like part of your foot or your hand or something like that, then you know the kind of pain that Justin Herbert is going through. It's the small bones on the extremities that hurt way worse than stuff like breaking ribs and everything like that. But and once again, as always, you never realize how much you use something until it's broken, and it hurts every time you use it, right? So that's basically what happens to Justin Herbert. Trey Lance flashes in there a little bit. It's Friday morning of week 14 in the NFL, and they're still trying to play this game of like maybe Justin Herbert's going to play. He just got surgery like a couple days ago. He hasn't practiced or anything like that, and so Trey Lance has been in there, and they're trying to make it seem like there's a chance that Justin Herbert plays. They are playing against the Eagles, which obviously they would need Justin Herbert in that one. It would be massive for them to be out there, to go out there and get that win, not only for their record overall, but really for their record overall, because the AFC West is in a tough spot because they can't. The Chargers are the only team that was actually even in striking distance of the Broncos, and it feels like the Broncos are just on a whole nother level right now. Some of it's scheduling, some of it's them actually just, they play everybody the exact same way, and it is close. And when the game is close, it is their game. That's what it really comes off like. Anyway, going back to this game, the Chargers defense was all over Geno. Just like every defense has been all over Geno all season. And Geno throws his 14th interception in this game overall. I think he's number one or tied for first in the NFL in interceptions. And when you're on a team that's built like the Raiders, cannot run the ball, cannot pass protect, and most weeks they struggle to play defense. You're not going to win when you turn the ball over, and that's essentially what happened in this game. They gave up a ton of pressure. I will say this, Max Crosby got busy on him. Max Crosby, going back to that Browns game, by the way, for the sack count, Myles Garrett is now up to 19. He's 3.5 away from breaking the record, and there's a real chance that he could possibly get to 25 and do something absolutely insane. You know what I mean? But going back to this game, speaking of pass rushers, Max Crosby got busy on him a little bit when it came to like heating up the Chargers and stuff like that. The Chargers basically became like a run-based team this entire game essentially. And Justin Herbert in the second half, which I'm assuming is when they used the tramadol shot on his hand, then he was able to throw the ball. So that was cool. Quentin Johnston got another touchdown catch in this game. A lot of this game was Imani Vidal doing crazy shit before the line of scrimmage. Like this guy, like he and Bijan Robinson move very similarly in terms of like they like space warp from location to location. But Imani Vidal does. Kamani Vidal. I said Amon. I'm thinking of Marion Hampton coming back and, Amani, Kamarian, all that kind of stuff. Kamani Vidal has like a massive touchdown run in this game, and it was just a drop in the bucket for the absolute clinic he put on in terms of like how to be a run-based team. And I'll say this much, John Harbaugh talks about getting Justin Herbert going and stuff like that and getting him in position to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. These Chargers look a lot like a John Harbaugh team that's way more focused on running motherfuckers over than throwing the ball down the field. Ladd McConkey has a touchdown in this game as well. Just the pacing for the Chargers, actually, for a long time in this game, the score was 14-7. And then in the back half of the third quarter, going into the entirety of the fourth, the Chargers just poured it on, man. And that was with their quarterback with a broken hand. And it's something that you see happen in the NFL. We talk about this all the time on the show about like first half rushing teams and second half rushing teams. And when I say rushing, I mean pass rushing. There's very few teams in the NFL that can consistently have great pass rush for 4 quarters just off energy level. Like exhaustion levels, like defenses get tired. And so as time goes on, throughout the course of a game, either you're the kind of team that comes out hot straight out of the gate and you're generating a ton of pressure early, or you're the team that generates pressure late in the fourth quarter, right? And I still haven't figured out which one is better for the team. Obviously, it comes off like generating pressure late will be important, but not generating pressure early on in games is how a lot of teams get in massive holes in terms of like scoring stuff and then end up losing. So, but yeah, that's all I got on this one, man. I'm not going to waste too much time talking about Chargers Raiders. The Raiders are cruising right to the top, baby. And it looks like, and it's sad to say, it looks like quarterback has got to be the top of the list of things that has to exist in terms of like what they're doing draft wise. Also, the question is starting to obviously creep around because the season has gone so bad. But I will say this: patience is a massively important part for how you make a team better. Firing Pete Carroll doesn't seem like it's the answer because it's not like the team was expected to actually be good this season. They spent a lot of money on a lot of players, but for the most part, like, it's not like they were supposed to be like real contenders overall. So like, what's the point of trying to pretend on the back end that you're disappointed with the season? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Arizona Cardinals. I do need to go to my notes for this one. Some of this stuff is actually important, I know. And I probably skipped a bunch of stuff that I wrote in my notes, but the Bucs survived seemingly another massive wave of injuries. If you haven't heard, the Bucs season has basically been defined by every person that is important to their team being successful at some point getting hurt for multiple games. They get Bucky Irvin and Chris Godwin back in this game, and then in the course of this game, when you watch it, the Cardinals defense proves once again it is one of the best group of players in the NFL, which is sad to say because I went back and I've looked at their season so far. Obviously, we're in week 13. The Cardinals have had their bye week already. Out of the 13 games the Cardinals have played this season, 9 of them have been one-possession games. They have won 2 of them. They are 2-7 in one-possession games, and it's tough. They have played some of the best teams in the NFL very close. They played the Colts extremely close. Don't forget they almost gave the Colts one of their first losses, or they almost gave the Colts their first loss of the season. But yeah, man, it's brutal up front because there is a lot of hope, and you have to imagine even with Kyler Murray out, if you add in James Conner to the mix with these guys, they are winning a lot more of these games in the back half of it. Their lack of consistency on offense has 100% affected their defensive stats. They are third down. In terms of like third down conversions allowed, they're like in the top half of the league, but they're in the bottom half. They're in the bottom like quadrant. They're like 24th in points allowed. So they do a really good job of stopping people on third down, but they give up so many points because they're on the field so often. Jacoby Brissett is really struggling to get the pass game going, mainly because the offensive line is back to struggling, man. Like, they had a good month in something where they were actually, holding up pretty well, but as time has gone on, they kind of eroded away, especially as the pass plays, I would say, are ill-timed to a certain degree. Everything seems like it's either super short yardage or down the field deep. There's no mid-range in the Cardinals offense, essentially. This game, though, defensively had like an eerily similar tone to pretty much every Cardinals game I've watched this season, and we saw Dante Sills and Josh Sweat, who a lot of people had given up on Josh Sweat like as a pass rusher when he was with the Commanders and stuff like that, but he's having like his best season ever in the NFL. And they were on Baker like he owed him money the entirety of this game. A lot of pass plays got taken away by the Cardinals, not because their pass coverage down the field was good, but because Baker didn't have enough time to actually read any of it. Bucky Irving did provide a lot of the consistency on the offensive half of this whole thing. Also, they're using Rashid White a lot more. I would say this, disappointed that Sean Tucker's been put to the back burner because it feels like during the injury period that was going on, Sean Tucker was a lot more reliable than Rashid White was. But I understand why Rashad White is on the field. The dude's really good at operating in open space. He's fantastic when you're doing like underneath screen stuff and everything like that. But Sean Tucker is just more of a pure running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'll say this much. They seem like they're a better team when they have a pure running back there running this one, because Bucky finished with like 60-something yards in his first game back, and they look like vast majority of this game, they were in control of it. This game didn't get close until the back end of the third quarter because, as you all know, listening to the show, that's how the Cardinals offense works. The Cardinals offense really struggles in the first like 2.5 quarters of the game, which is really bad because there's only 4 quarters in the game overall, but they struggle in the first 2.5. But when they get to those last like 3 drives, that's when they really kick it into overdrive and they become super competitive. The offense spent a lot of time early on trying to establish Bam Knight as the running threat, and the Bucs were still, every time the Cardinals dropped back to pass the ball, they were on Jacoby almost instantaneously. It was 10-3 at halftime of this game, but when you watched the game and what you saw was happening on the field, the Buccaneers were in definitive control. By the way, they got a touchdown to Tristan Wirfs, their left tackle. It's pretty good. Always good when the big dog gets it, especially because, let's be real, Tristan Wirfs, if you know his athletic background, he's got like a wrestling background and a bunch of other stuff like weightlifting and everything like that. He's one of the best athletes on the field any given time he plays. Opening kickoff, a Buccaneers coach was on the sideline looking at the kickoff happening. The Cardinals kick returner was running up the left-hand side of the field, ran out of bounds, and it was sliding on the ground. The Bucs coach tried to jump over him, and he ran out of athleticism, as C.J. McCollum would say, and he missed clearing him by about like 6 inches, and he gets his legs taken from underneath him, and he smashes face first onto those mats there on the side of on the sideline, and he had to be concussed. He had like a hat on, like a brimmed hat on, and if you ever walked into like the side of a wall when you have like a bill of a cap on, and you know how hard it hits your head, he went face first with no cushioning to the ground, right into the ground itself, like a turf covered, a turf mat or whatever, and I can't imagine how hard the brim of that hat, how deep it went into his skull. Because he had a tough time getting up, and I just saw that, and I was like, God damn, dude, that's crazy. Anyway, back to football. The Buccaneers are dominating this game without the score kind of reflecting it, which is very eerily similar, like I said before, to pretty much every Cardinals game this season. The Cardinals offense does not look like it's a threat like 90% of the game until the last 10% of it, and then they turn it on. Their offense is always working late, you know what I mean? Anyway, they are at this point, we're getting at we're past halftime. It's 10-6. At this point, they've already turned the ball over twice. The opening drive of this game for the Cardinals was intercepted by Antoine Winfield, who's been having like a crazy season. Have to imagine that Antoine Winfield's going to be all-pro again, which is ridiculous. H-Town, hold it down. He's from the Woodlands, but I still claim him. Antoine Winfield, and then there was another interception there. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The first possession, the first drive of the game, interception. The first drive of the second half, ball gets popped out. Bam Knight's running through a hole, and a D lineman is like on the ground and pops it up from underneath him as he's running with the ball, which is crazy. I guess that's why they say 5 points of contact all the time, because you can protect the ball from any direction. Anyway, the ball pops out, and his teammate catches it like while it's midair, which is crazy. So yeah, that's how the first half starts off for the Cardinals. Again, absolute calamity at all times with this team, and in the end, the possessions. The time of possession, because the Buccaneers had like 10 minutes more time of possession, plus the 2 turnovers, plus the fact that their offense is way more consistent, despite it only getting 20 points. They were still more consistent in terms of like getting up and down the field than the Cardinals were. The Cardinals had like 6 3-and-outs in this one, and the Buccaneers scored 10 more points in the second half of the game, and the Cardinals basically can't respond. They score a touchdown to make it relatively close, and then the last possession, their last drive of the game, goes sack on first down, incomplete pass on third down, sack on third down, and then an attempted throw. I think it was like 4th and 16 to Trey McBride, and he gets tackled short of the line to gain, and the game is over, essentially. So, yeah. Moving on, let's talk about the next category. Powering through on this one. Heartbreakers. These are the games that are pretty vicious. I also have notes on every single one of these games. We'll see if I use them. Jets, Falcons. So, the Falcons fucking blew this game. The Falcons have lost so many games in the fashion that they lost to the Jets. And by the way, the Jets have won 2 of their last... No, it's 3 of their last 4, because they won back-to-back games. They lost 1, and now they've won this one. So, they're fucking up their draft pick in the back half of the season. You got to finish the job, you know what I mean? Calm it down, Tyrod Taylor. Anyway, vast majority of this game, the Falcons are outplaying the Jets. And then in the back half of it, the first half is a lot of Tyrod Taylor running around on the field looking for people to get open. A lot of that is due to the pass rush pressure that the Falcons were putting on them. The Falcons are still 3rd this season in terms of sacks overall. Absolutely amazing to go from like the bottom half of the bottom 3 in terms of like sack getters. I think they were dead last in sacks last season, and now they're 3rd off just 2 draft picks overall. So this whole game can be defined by special teams. Tyrod Taylor being the dynamic playmaker that everybody thought he was going to be, because he has way less hesitation than Justin Fields does. He knows when to bail out of the pocket. He knows how to get rid of the ball to prevent massive losses. And then most importantly, he knows how to get the ball to playmakers in short distances and let them work it out. A lot of his throws in this game were to A.D. Mitchell, which I think is cool. H-Town, hold it down. Ridge Point High School. A.D. Mitchell looks like he's going to do great with the Jets. He's going to get opportunities at the very least to go out there and make something happen. But for the most part, man, this is the liveliest that the Jets offense has looked, and it didn't look good vast majority of this game. But they did squeak this one out. The Falcons had Kirk Cousins in place because, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get a full season yet out of Michael Penix in his young career. But the Falcons had a very clear game plan, and it was to run the fuck out of that ball. Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson combined, I think it was for over 200 rushing yards in this one. Both of them got a touchdown. Bijan had 94 yards rushing at halftime, and the opening drive of the second half, he had 100 on a touchdown run. So yeah, it was one of those kind of games. They had, and they were getting what they wanted. They were limiting what they were doing in the pass game severely because of Kirk Cousins, and they know that he doesn't gel very well with the offense that they're running. A lot of his passes were to Bijan and to Tyler Algier and to Kyle Pitts. So if you're a guy who has or gal or person that has Kyle Pitts in fantasy, you love Kirk Cousins because he knows how to get the ball to Kyle Pitts. They basically, if your name was Darnell Mooney or whoever the 4 other wide receivers are for the Falcons that are not named Drake London, you didn't exist. I think Darnell Mooney had like 2 catches in this game, which, you know what? I was going to say that's 2 catches more than he deserves, but he's been doing a lot better since week 4 of the season, where he kind of was the reason that they lost to the Panthers and got shut out. Whatever. Anyway, Falcons lead this game all the way until the very, very final play, which, ironically enough, Nick Folk missed a 55-yard field goal earlier in this game to take the lead, and instead he makes the 56-yarder that gives the Jets the lead with like 2 seconds left on the clock. This is in the heartbreakers category because not only are the Atlanta Falcons I read an article, they still have a chance to make the playoffs, and I was like, in what universe? And obviously that's taking into account the way that they are currently playing. There's a way for them to make the playoffs statistically and with, like, you know, winning certain games, right? Like, that's under the idea that they can win any game that they play in, which technically they can, unless Kirk, you know, maybe the old Kirk can dust off the gun one more time and go out there and cook. He looked a lot better than he did that first start that he had when Michael Penix was out. I'll say that much. But a lot of this offense was still so limited. There's no way you can really see it being like crazy successful. But it will be awesome to see Bijan and Tyler Algier go out there and be able to run the ball a bunch. Also, Falcons one of the best O-lines in the league. And they've been doing it all season. Like, even regardless of the Kirk Cousins situation, they are still been blocking their asses off, man. They look amazing out there. This is a heartbreaker because it's yet another close loss for the Falcons. I think they've got like 8 one-possession losses this season, which is brutal because I thought they were going to be a playoff contender. I think I had them in my 3 teams that I think will make the playoffs, but they come up short week after week, and eventually it all piles up, and you come up short versus the Jets, and you lose on Sunday. Brutal. Moving on, Thursday night well, it wasn't Thursday night football, it's Thursday football, and this was the Thanksgiving game. In case you didn't watch it, don't worry. This game was a ton of fun, and it was actually really important. This kind of fucked the lines a little bit. I thought they were pretty much done, but apparently they still got a shot at one of the wild card spots because they're 7-4 now. Well, they're 8-4 in the current world that we live in. Spoiler alert: the Lions won on Thursday Night Football versus the Cowboys and essentially eliminated the Cowboys from playoff contention. While they lost to the Packers in this one. This game is deceptive. This game did not really. It felt like the Packers were up, vast majority of it. A good chunk of that had to do with the fact that Jordan Love was able to pass really successfully. Most of the reason he was able to pass was the pass rush for the Lions could not get home, which, guess what? That's been the case for every team that has competed against the Packers this season. Jordan Love is the wiliest of the coyotes out there, man. He disappears. He disappears, and then he floats the ball up down the field, and Christian Watson catches like a 60-yard bomb. That's legitimately what it doesn't even look. He's not like early stage Lamar, where he's like crossing up defenders down to the ground. He's just like, seems like the party's over here inside this pocket. I'm just gonna mosey on here to the left-hand side. Also, he's got really good pocket movement for when they do have a clean pocket, which is vast majority of the time as well. But the time in the pocket and a good quarterback is textbook what people are talking about. The difference between a good quarterback and a bad quarterback and an average quarterback. You give a ridiculously good quarterback like Jordan Love time in the pocket, he's going to find the answer. At some point, he's going to find the answer, and that's what happened in this game, man. The Lions just could not get home to taking out Jordan Love, and he burned them for it like almost every single time. Emmanuel Wilson didn't play as much as he did in this game. He carried the Packers last week to that dub, which is always clutch because I think the Packers, Matt LaFleur comes off because, everybody, hot coach, as my girlfriend likes to call him, Matt LaFleur. he comes off like he's one of these new age passing guys, but you have to forget, you guys forget who his friends are, right? Like Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan and stuff like that. Like these guys, they're about running the ball. They believe in running the ball through people's faces, and it shows when they get a chance to do it. They always take it. That's why they all covet really good running backs so much. But in this case, the combination of the run game from the Packers plus Jordan Love just buying time late in games is just. It was too difficult for the Lions to overcome. Like as a unit overall, it was good to see the Lions go out there and actually put up points versus a really good defense because they've actually, once again, this is one, we've talked about this a bunch of times. The Lions don't beat teams that are good. The Lions beat bad teams, and they got a lot of bad teams on their schedule this season. Their best win this year, you can go back and look at their record. I think their best win this year is them beating the Ravens. And the question, of course, like the Ravens are in playoff contention. They're going to win the AFC North as it seems right now because the Steelers just look abysmal when they play football. But they've beaten the Ravens and they've now beaten the Cowboys. Two teams that were on the outside looking, well, the Ravens were falling apart and they were part of the reason they started the spiral. The Cowboys, up until recently, we were like, this is a team with a really good offense and a defense that can't do anything. And now, they get a little bit of defense and they're back. They were back into the mix in terms of being a playoff team, but, that's just not the case. That's just not the case. I wouldn't be too confident if you told me that your best wins this season are the Baltimore Ravens and the Dallas Cowboys. And that's what the Lions are telling you. And it shows when they play against good teams. They just can't get those key plays. They are a run-based team. Like I've said before, and I keep saying it, I do not like the split. I do not like how the carries are being split up between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I'm not in charge of that team. I do not like it. It's way too much focus on Jahmyr Gibbs, who really struggles when it comes to like running between the tackles a good chunk of time. But when he's got, he's a dude. It feels like David Montgomery's way more consistent in terms of taking plays where yardage is being lost and getting back to the line of scrimmage or getting like 1 or 2 yards out of it. Whereas like Jahmyr Gibbs hits bangers, man. That dude is his end of the year highlight tape is gonna be so sick. But yeah, I just don't like the way the split. I don't like the way the carries are being split up, and I haven't liked this since like week 1 of the season, right? And yeah, that's all I really got to say about that. And I think it affects them in key games when they can't. They act like they're a team that they're not capable of having 2 number 1 running backs be a big impact player. Moving on, Monday, December 1st, this was Monday Night Football. This was the Patriots versus the Giants. The Patriots came out there and they must have thought it was SummerSlam. They were going at Jackson Dart like it was the Patriots defense was running and slamming at Jackson Dart like they was getting ready for WrestleMania. They were going out there and they were letting him know like, hey man, just in case we needed to remind you, it is not safe for you outside the pocket. And I think a lot of people, I sent that video. I wish I could remember what linebacker it was, but he ran. Jackson Dart thinks he's going to mosey on out of bounds, and a linebacker literally shoots going full speed right into his right shoulder pad and knocks him and hits him out of bounds, even because he wasn't out of bounds when he hit him. And the other, the Giants are all mad and throwing a hissy fit or whatever, and it's just hilarious because it's just like they came out there to send a message, and they sent it very quickly. They're like, it is not safe for you, young man. These streets, they make sidewalks for a reason. Anyway, that forced Jackson Dart to have to throw the ball a lot more. It didn't force Jackson Dart to throw the ball a lot more. They just really struggled overall in terms of like pass completions in general. What the Giants' biggest issue obviously is keeping drives alive. The Patriots are nasty on 3rd down, and a lot of it has to do with the pressure that the pressure that they generate. Harold Landry was on fire in this game, and the Giants, look, man, people have been talking about it since the beginning of the season. They were waiting until Andrew Thomas got back, and they thought it was going to be like super healthy or whatever. Their line got dismantled in this game, and a lot of other offensive lines have been dismantled at the feet of the New England Patriots. But for the most part, the pace that the Patriots put up, the Giants could not match. They don't have the team. They're not built to be able to match that kind of pace that the Patriots were putting out there. The Patriots also were just crazy. The Patriots are one of the best run teams in the NFL, and the Giants are one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and it showed every time. Every time they needed it to show, they made it show, and it shined through pretty brightly, man. And that's what really created the separation in this one. Drake May tore him up, man. Drake May just dismantled him up front, and this is what we expected to happen in this one, but to go from almost beating the Lions, which, by the way, I think says a lot more about the Lions than it does the Giants, almost beating the Lions a week ago to off of they lose because of Jahmyr Gibbs with a crazy run from him in overtime, and then now losing in this embarrassing fashion and still only having 2 wins on the season. They fired the head coach. Jackson Dart is coming off a massive concussion, and they throw in a little bit of Jameis magic, and it makes everybody feel good for a couple weeks. But when it's all said and done, they're still the Giants, and they're still spiraling the bottom of the toilet, man. It's brutal, and this game was one of those examples of just like the emotional factor that goes into being a fan of a team that you can see the hope a little bit, but the hope ain't coming this year. The hope is years down the road. Years down the road, hopefully Jackson is going to get better, and then hopefully the team is also going to put effort and time around him. But based off the fact that they kept the GM, maybe not. Who knows? This is just one of those moments where it's tough being a fan. It is. It's a heartbreaker one. It's national television. Giants getting destroyed on national TV. Usually they only have to deal with that on their own personal networks and at their own stadium, but to have it on Monday Night Football and it to look that bad was really tough because they've looked a lot better. And I say that as a person who's watched every Giants game. This is the worst that they have looked pretty much all season in comparison to like the first 3 games of the season where Russell Wilson was quarterbacking. So it was a little tough. It was tough, man, to see that happen because under Jackson Dart, they have not looked this bad, and they look terrible, but it's also because the Patriots are apparently the best team in the NFL. Who the fuck told me that? Also, don't forget the Patriots have the worst schedule. They had the worst projected they had the easiest projected schedule of the season coming into this season. Last game of the Heartbreakers. Do we have to talk about it? Do I have to talk about it? By the way, if you're watching right now, like and subscribe. Do we have to talk about it? It's man, this shit's so boring. The Bills remembered the thing. The Bills remembered they put on their thinking caps and they said, how do we beat this team that's going to give us a million chances to beat them? If you recall, the biggest indictment of how bad the Steelers' offense is, they generated 5 turnovers versus the Indianapolis Colts and only got 28 points out of it. How do you beat a team? How do you beat a team that's going to give you a million chances to beat them? You run the ball down their fucking throat, and that's what the Bills did. So shout out James Cook. He absolutely destroyed in this 141 yards, and the Bills went back to the old bread and butter. It's about that time of the year, by the way. It's about that time of the year where you don't want your starting running back getting hurt. It's about that time of the year where the run game starts to run things around here. It already was running the game for a lot of teams as they were preparing for this. And one thing I can say that I'm definitively so happy for, outside of like James Conner, all of the major running backs in the NFL, who we knew coming into the season, they were all like healthy. Like Saquon still playing, Derrick Henry still playing, Jonathan Taylor, who had like massive ankle injuries last season that held him back, still playing. We're with the Green Bay Packers, Josh Jacobs is coming back and doing his thing. With the Patriots, we're starting to see Travion Henderson emerge. With the Bills, James Cook is still in the mix. You loved it because the running backs are going to be the backbone of who ends up going to the Super Bowl. Like, if you don't have the guy at running back, you're not going to do it. Like, there's no team that's got like bad running backs and been successful. I feel like there's like a direct. There has to be. I would love to know who the worst starting running back is in the Super Bowl era of football. But in the current modern day version of football, especially the one that's like kind of trending backwards into a circle, the running back position is paramount, bro. And so far, everybody's guy is still standing, which is super rare. Super rare. It really is, man. And there's some new guys emerging. Wow. Especially at the running back position. Moving on, you saw how, I had to, the heartbreaking part was the Steelers remembering, the Steelers being like, oh, we're tied with the Ravens record-wise, and then watching their team play football and knowing deep down inside they're just setting themselves up for heartbreak. It feels like they're right back. Well, it feels like they're right back in the same spot that they were a couple years ago. Well, it feels like they're right back in the same spot they are in every year. Because now the stuff is starting to swirl about, oh man, are they going to fire Mike Tomlin again for like the third time in a row? If you're going to do it, just do it, bro. Anyway, oh my. The final penultimate category here. This is the category that involves the games that have interesting outcomes for various reasons, and I'll explain them as I go through it. The Texans beating the Colts. Obviously, this one is major, mainly because I've been telling you what's going to happen for like 3 weeks, and I told you that it was going to happen last week on the Week 12 reactions and predictions. I think the Texans are going to win the AFC South. I do not believe the Jaguars are a good football team, and they've shown that to me and to you many times throughout this season. The Texans are, in fact, the best team in the AFC South. They just have to, overcome some mistakes that they had early on in the season. By the way, the Texans would be one of, 5 teams that started the season 0-3 and still make the playoffs if they're able to pull this one off. And I think they'd be the only team that wins the division after starting the season 0-3. So maybe 18 games does make that big a difference. One extra game, I guess, can make that big of a difference. But there's a long time between now, especially because the AFC South actual divisional schedule is so backloaded again. It feels like every other year the AFC South is loaded like this, where you play like one divisional game, and then 2 months go by, you play another divisional game, and then you play 2 divisional games at the end of that month, and then now you have 5 more divisional games right before the season starts, and they're all right next to each other because we're trying to generate drama. It is more than likely exactly how that goes, but for the most part in this one, the score is deceptive. The Indianapolis Colts quarterback Daniel Jones has a broken leg, is the way it would be described medically, because a fracture is still a break. If it's partially broken or completely broken, it is still a break. That's why, you have grade 1, grade 2, 3 strains. Strains are technically tears in muscles. Fractures are just tears in bones. And he has his non-load, it's his fibula, so it's the non-load bearing one. So it's the smaller of the 2 bones that's got a fracture in it. He also has a 3D cast on his leg that his college roommate apparently has a business in designing. So they talked about that on the broadcast. And, it is nothing short. It is insane that he was able to complete this NFL football game, and let alone kept it kind of close. For the most part, what happened in this one is Daniel Jones is not a threat to run the ball. Daniel Jones has not. There's been moments where Daniel Jones has been a threat to be able to pick apart defenses with passes. He is not a threat to pick apart the Houston Texans defense with passes. The emphasis and biggest focus was stopping Jonathan Taylor. This was Jonathan Taylor's worst game of the entire season. No surprise there. The Texans are very familiar with JT. Remember, they've played against Jonathan Taylor for like 4 years prior to this, right? And they're very familiar with how teams want to utilize them. They're very familiar with how to stop them, and they showed it. And that, once you take away JT, guess what? Just like every other team in the NFL, you take away their best player, typically they don't play all that well. Now, that Colts team, based off what I saw and what I know about the Texans and how good they are, that Colts team is more than good enough to beat plenty of teams in the NFL. Now, are those teams in the NFL they can beat on the back end of their schedule? They are not. We'll see. This could, and, I heard part of my take talking about it. It's something I've thought about as well. They could lose like 3 of their last 4 games or something like that. So there's like a legit chance that could happen. And especially with Daniel Jones having his leg broken, that would be such a bummer to go from like the most prolific offensive season in the history of the Indianapolis Colts to QB with a broken leg, can't complete like multiple passes in a row, and can't get it done towards the end of the season going into the playoffs, let alone, people were talking Super Bowl. People were looking up flights. People I know were looking up flights. Yeah. it happens, man. It really can be that quick. Also, their lead in the AFC South evaporated like that. It was crazy, man. Because it's not just the Texans that are doing it. The Jaguars have been winning games in the back half of the season too. But yeah, man, it feels like the Texans' final game versus the Jags is going to be the big linchpin that is going to decide the AFC South. But we'll see. The Texans play the Colts on the final week of the season, and I will be going insane. That game is going to be sold out because it's going to be in Houston. And also, just want to point this out, for the last 5 years that the Texans have played the Colts at Lucas Oil Stadium, they have beaten them. And if you don't know, one of the craziest records for a long time in the NFL was that the Texans were 4-17 all time on the road at Indianapolis for a long time. I guess it was still the RCA Dome, but I think it was Lucas Oil when I went there. The Texans' first ever Monday Night Football game, they played the Colts on Monday Night Football in Indianapolis and got absolutely destroyed. I was in college, and my school got me free tickets to go see the game, and I went with my girlfriend, and I watched my team get their ass whooped. But it is crazy to live in a time now where you expect to win at Indianapolis. And another big win for the Texans, another step towards the ultimate goal. The Texans were always going to be the Texans were always pegged to be a playoff team to start this season, and now they are showing it. I love to see the teams that are picking it up in the back half of the season because I know it is impossible to start the season hot, play hot the entire season, and be unstoppable the entire season. It is amazing. I love that it is my team that is getting hot in the back half of the season, and I get to watch it. Anyway, Bengals, Ravens. This one was crazy disappointing. Hold on. Had to get a little squirt there, a little squirt of water. Bengals, Ravens. How do I break this down? How do I describe the Ravens in this game? You know what? I'll just say it. The number of teams in the NFL that can overcome 4 turnovers in a single game and still win are maybe one. And I'm having I think maybe one. It would depend on the situation. A team that has a good enough defense that can overcome that their offense turn the ball over 4 times. I'm trying to think about it. Maybe the Broncos? Probably the Broncos, and still maybe to win it. And I don't even have faith enough that their offense is going to do it. Anyway, the Ravens turned the ball over 4 times in this game. 2 of them were deflected passes at the line of scrimmage into the hands of defenders. Kind of crazy. Pretty fucking sick, I'm not going to lie. A lot of the interceptions this week were pretty dope. But yeah, the Ravens turned the ball over 4 times, and this game was still way too close. You go back and you look at what the scores were after 3 turnovers, and it's a 10-point game in favor of the Bengals. And the back half of the game where the Ravens, who already have an offense that was struggling to begin with, now really can't get it popping off because they're losing possessions because of turnovers. And then on top of that, their offense is super slow right now. There's no pop, no explosion to the Ravens offense. And a lot of what they really struggle with is distributing the ball to anybody that's not Mark Andrews or Zay Flowers. And it showed. The Bengals put up a bunch of points on the board because they spent a lot of time with short fields. Joe Burrow is very good at football. He's even better at football when he ain't got to throw that much. You know what I mean? He went out there, he did his thing, and dude, it was just that's literally all it could be. This game was defined by the four turnovers that the Ravens had. A fumble out of the back of the end zone by Isaiah Likely, the most back-breaking, heart-crushing type of turnover in the NFL when you're about to score a touchdown and then the ball gets popped out, or you drop it right before you cross the end zone, or as you're crossing the end zone into the end zone, and it ends up being, back of the end zone, the dumbest result possible of being a 20-yard touchback. which still doesn't make sense to this day, and I don't think anybody can ever explain how it makes sense in the grand scheme of the rules. If you can, hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook if you have a logical explanation for why when you fumble the ball at the 1 yard line through the back of the end zone, the other team gets the ball and it's a 20-yard, it's a touchback of the 20-yard line, whatever. That's what this game was defined by. 4 turnovers from a team that is supposed to be one of the best teams in the NFL, and by my metrics, supposed to make the Super Bowl and win it. So this is easily one of the worst showings that the Ravens have had all season, and that's saying a lot. But I will say that defense was still looking good, though. That defense was still locking up. That defense was still doing a really good job. They weren't getting a ton of pressure, and that was the big thing out of this one. Apparently, Joe Burrow, with like no training camp whatsoever with these guys, he did have training camp with them, but he didn't have too many reps with them in live games. But he's like in perfect sync with these offensive linemen. There were so many instances where the O-linemen were like technically getting beat, but the way that Joe Burrow adjusted in the pocket was helping them hold their blocks longer. And I don't think I saw Joe Flacco do a little bit of that, but you can only do so much. Joe Burrow's on a whole nother level. He's got like eyes everywhere. The back of his head, the side of his head, and everything like that, and it shows. But yeah, they cooked him on this one, man. It was pretty bad. And it was like a slow burn type of deal because the Ravens do have a slower paced offense. And so when they lose possessions, even if it's just one, as of right now, it is putting a major dampener on what they're capable of doing. Also, Lamar Jackson was running outside the pocket on purpose in this game, which means that maybe his hamstring is 100% now. We'll see. Moving on, other game. This game was massive because they didn't send out like Bleacher Report. I have Bleacher Report notifications. Sue me, I don't really give a shit. I enjoy it. They give me the ability to select multiple teams, random teams too, and get information on them very quickly. They sent out almost instantaneously after the final score. The score went final in this one, 24-15. The Chicago Bears are the number 1 seed in the NFC. Crazy work on so many different levels, right? The Bears were the Bears in this game. They dominated up front. This was defined and solely about their ability to run the ball. The Bears cracked the Eagles up front. I will say this, a lot of this has to do with Jalen Carter, who has now gotten surgery on both of his shoulders. By the way, if you are an Eagles fan, that has got to be the most heartbreaking the most heartbreaking notification to possibly get. Your superstar defensive lineman probably done into the playoffs because it feels like the Eagles are still going to make the playoffs. Probably done to the playoffs, recovering. We'll see. Haven't seen anything about a timeline of his return, but double shoulder surgery is probably like rotator cuffs, right? Whatever. Anyway, he was hurt during this game, and he got bodied in the run game, and it showed. The Bears' offensive line up front was nasty. If your team has a bad offensive line, it's probably because the Bears paid a ton of money to the guy that was thinking about coming to your team. And it's paying off big time. They're taking all the pressure off Caleb Williams to go out there and make the plays. Caleb is a part of the run game, so it's a little bit different than what they have with Jared Goff in Detroit. They have a quarterback who's capable of adding that extra dimension. Like, he is the final form version of the Ben Johnson style of offense, which is eerily similar to a lot of the stuff that Kyle Shanahan and his dad did or do in the NFL. But yeah, it is a lot of that plus Kyle Monungai and DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift was nasty in this one. So many broken tackles. I want to say they had double-digit broken tackles throughout the course of this game. And there was a bunch of times where linebackers were shooting the wrong gaps. There was a bunch of times where D-linemen are supposed to be two-gappers and they can't two-gap because the blocking was so good up front. The passing game, didn't really matter. It didn't have to come out and blow us all away. It was just one of those moments where, the passing game was the garnish on top of just this absolute running clinic. So much of it was an issue because it was kind of crazy. The offensive pace that the running game of the Bears set was too fast for the Eagles to keep up with. A lot of that had to do with the fact that the Bears used their big brain and they put and had locked up one of the most important matchups in this entire game. If you've been paying attention all season, there have been two people that Jalen Hurts has thrown the ball to a ton. It is Dallas Goedert, who's his tight end, and Devontae Smith, even when A.J. Brown has been complaining about not getting the ball, which, to his credit, he's a really good player, right? Devontae Smith gets and draws the most important matchup in this entire game, and he can't beat him. It's Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard, the free safety for the Chicago Bears, is manned up on Devontae Smith almost every single one of these plays. And the interception that Kevin Byard pulls off is from reading what is considered by a lot of people to be a really simplistic offense that the Eagles are running up front, meaning that they're dependent upon their playmakers to go out there and get separation and make plays. But Devontae Smith getting taken away was huge because out of all the wide receivers that get thrown to, Devontae Smith is the number one guy, right? And that's essentially what Kevin Byard has to be on track to be all-pro safety again this year. Remember a couple years ago when he was on the Titans, he was considered to be like the number one safety in the NFL. This year he has played like it and then some, man. His interceptions are like, I think he's got like 7 on the season, and remember that one time he was playing, I forgot what team it was, but he had an interception in his hand, and then his greedy-ass rookie teammate ran over to the same spot, didn't realize that Kevin already had it in his hands, and he hit Kevin and he made him drop it. It would have been a pick. Anyway, it would have been number 8 on the season. The Bears played like a complete game of football today versus one of the best teams, I guess a shell of one of the best teams in the NFL. A team that has a lot of talent that most people would think would have more talent than them. And so now the Bears are the number one seed in the NFC. Crazy how fast that happens. Moving on to crazy shit that happened in another place. It's 31-28. The Dallas Cowboys beat the Kansas City Chiefs. This game started off the way that I want to see almost every Cowboys game start off. They're throwing a really funny interception. Shout out to Dak. He did trick me in the end because the Cowboys obviously eventually won this one, but for the most part, man, they had like one fuck up, and it was that interception. And after that, they were dealing, bro. It wasn't even they don't even really have to depend upon establishing the run. That's how good their pass game is. George Pickens on the slants was killing them up front, and then Trenton McDuffie, oh my God. Not only, I'm gonna be honest with you, 2 of those pass interference that Trent McDuffie got called for didn't make any sense. One in particular, it's CeeDee Lamb running a streak route down the middle of the field. He hops to the inside of Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie lets him run by because he can't stop him from moving on his route. And then Dak throws the ball to the outside of a streak route, and CeeDee Lamb runs back to the inside. Trent McDuffie lets him back inside, and but because CeeDee Lamb has to go lateral to get towards the ball, it slows him down, and the referees call pass interference. It really felt like some of them were like, you're just ignoring the game. Like, you're ignoring the uncatchable ball rule. You know what I mean? Like, the balls, if it's not catchable, you can't call it. If the ball's not catchable, it can't be a pass that is being interfered with. But outside of that, tons and tons of penalties. A lot of those penalties were holding penalties as Patrick Mahomes was trying to find people deep down the field. And it felt like that. So when I looked at it, the thing that I saw, the Cowboys were taking away short underneath passes, utilizing their linebackers because their linebackers are a little bit better now. They're utilizing their linebackers in a DB to take the short underneath passes away, which forces Patrick Mahomes to look further down the field for targets, right? Got to find Hollywood Brown. Got to find literally anybody else. Got to find Juju Smith-Schuster. Got to find Tyquan Thornton. Got to find Rashid Weiss, who they did find a couple of times in this game. They use Rashid a lot more like the 49ers used to use Debo and how the Commanders kind of use Debo now. So that he's the wide back, as they used to say it when Debo first did it. But going back to what the Cowboys defensively were doing, they took away short yardage, forced deeper throws down the field, but there was no time to find the deeper throws down the field because they were winning so quickly at the defensive line position. Kenny Clark and Quentin Williams led the team in pressures in this game. Surprise, surprise. And then Jadeveon Clowney, free agent, had 2 sacks in this game versus had 2 sacks in this game versus Patrick Mahomes. Sorry, I was burping off camera. I'm sorry, off mic. Anyway, that was the crazy part about this whole thing. Top to bottom, it felt like the Cowboys played a damn near perfect defensive plan, and the Kansas City Chiefs still scored 28 points. So I think that says something. I do feel like, and I'll say this much, I don't think they got enough juice. I don't think they got enough left in the tank. I don't think they got enough left in the tank to be able to make the playoffs, because the situation is just that dire. They have to go undefeated the back half of the season. And with the way that the inconsistency that we've seen from the offense throughout the course of this season, and even some inconsistency from the defense, it doesn't give me much confidence that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to make the playoffs this year, which is crazy to say out loud, especially considering they don't, as of now, they already have 1 loss versus the Chargers. If they lose to the Chargers again, it's pretty much over. So, and not pretty much. It is over. If they lose in the back half of the season, it's done. I've been saying it for like the last couple of weeks. I just don't believe in them right now. And I know that it's going to make me look stupid. Nobody really watches this show. I'm kidding. You watch this show, and I appreciate that. But yeah, Dallas Cowboys, Kansas City Chiefs, man. This game was a ton of fun to watch overall. It was a shocking result when it was all said and done, because it felt like the game maybe was going to go to overtime. But Dak Prescott absolutely outdueled Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. Crazy to say out loud, but it's true. It's true, man. And the Cowboys, they looked like they had some kind of semblance of a playoff hope, but losing on Thursday Night Football pretty much killed them. So we'll see, man. The Eagles could be spiraling here pretty soon and opening the door for the Cowboys to end up somehow winning. Actually, you know what it'll open the door for? It'll open the door for the most iconic game that happens every single fucking year in the NFL. It is the final week of the season, and everybody who's at home knows what this is. It's week 16 or week 15 or week 17. In the NFC, every divisional game has been played except one. Eagles versus Cowboys. One more time. But I do think that tie is probably going to screw over the Cowboys. Obviously, you want the tie to be a win. It is against the NFC opponent, too, so that makes it even worse, because that probably is going to screw them in wild card seeding, if they even had a shot at the wild card, which I don't think they actually do. Moving on, last 2 games. Oh, man. I want to talk about Broncos Commanders, because that one was slightly less fun than the last game, because I feel like the last game is the most important game of the entire week. Not because of what it means for the playoffs, but because of what it means for the era, the time that we are in. The Broncos played the Commanders. Once again, the Broncos do the thing where they decide they're going to play down to the Commanders, right? The Broncos have top 3 defense in the NFL, probably number 2 behind the Houston Texans. They have an offense that has a ton of talent. Cortland Sutton is really good at his job. RJ Harvey's really good. Apparently, J.K. Dobbins is coming back. That's pretty cool. Offensive line play has been really good for the Broncos throughout the course of this season. Bo Nix. I'm at the point now where I'm safe to say I take Bo Nix over Trevor Lawrence. Don't know how many other quarterbacks I take over Bo Nix, but it's week after week. It's the same thing. They're okay with winning ugly, as people like to say, as they say back in the day. But that's essentially what they do every single week, and a lot of it has to do with obviously the offensive inconsistency. The way you win ugly in football is our defense is stupidly good that they keep the game close, and we kind of cobble together points throughout the course of the game, and we typically only score after the other team has scored, and nobody ever gets more than like 2 possessions ahead of us in a singular game, which I think is most of what the Broncos are about. That's what happens in this one. Marcus Mariota and the Washington Commanders, where they are as a team and where they are as a team, I felt like they outplayed the Broncos in this one, but that's not how it shook out in the end. It was a close one. It was another, and this is my personal opinion, it was another really good defensive performance from the Commanders after what we saw versus when they went to Spain and they played against the Dolphins, and it was like their first time with Dan Quinn calling the plays and stuff like that. They played better defense. They got a decent amount of pass rush. Obviously, the Broncos' offense isn't like the most consistent thing on the face of the planet, but when you force them into the positions that a lot of the time they were getting forced into, like they were going blow for blow with the Broncos, and the Broncos are supposed to be the second best team in the AFC, one of the best teams in the NFL overall, and the Commanders were really working with them, man. You know what I mean? The Broncos are clearly the team that God has chosen for the one possession wins. And when I say the God, I mean the football gods, right? They have chosen them for the one possession winner game. Like there's every year there's some team in the NFL where you look at their record and you're just like, wow, man, they won like 18 of these games off one possession, bro. And that's what happened. This is yet another example of that. The Commanders, like I said before, they look like the better offense. They look like somewhat relatively close defensively as well, too, man. And if it wasn't for R.J. Harvey, the Broncos would be lost. They really struggle when they don't have their run game going, and that showed itself throughout the course of this game. The Commanders, Marcus Mariota had like one bonehead play where he tried to throw the ball while he tried to Jesus hop, so he ran out of the pocket. He knew he wasn't going to be able to escape because he saw a D lineman shedding away from an offensive lineman, and so he jumped up in the air and he tried to float a ball into the end zone, and Dre Greenlaw was right there waiting for the ball. He caught it, and he ran with his bionic arm about 5 yards down the field, and the Broncos were able to score a couple plays later. But it was interesting to watch this game. A lot of great plays overall. There were a couple of really good turnovers, and I had a lot of fun watching both of these offenses kind of like figure it out towards the end. That first part, a little shaky. That first intro part, a little shaky. Moving on, last game of the entire week for me, and I can't wait because I get to go to sleep at 6:30 in the morning for me, and I've been up all night. So this is what we're here for. This game, on so many levels, is exactly why people watch football. The Carolina Panthers were one of the worst teams in the NFL last season. It is week 13, now going into 14 of the NFL season. The LA Rams started last week as the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. They are now the number 2 seed, and they are spiraling a little bit on the back half of this season in a dangerous NFC West. Very quickly can go from division leader to third place in the division and possibly contending for a wild card spot number 2. They went from like the front runner in terms of Super Bowl contender to a team that lost to the Carolina Panthers on the final, not the final play, but on the final kind of phase of this game, man, because it was this game, and I mean this in all sincerity, this was the first time this season we have seen the Panthers put everything together. The defense played in its best form out there, because I will say this, man, the Rams, for whatever you have to say about them, their offense is insane. So, for instance, in this game, they were 2 minutes into the second quarter, and Devontae Adams already had 2 touchdowns. He caught his second touchdown at like the 14:39 mark, or it was like 12:39 mark of the second quarter. Crazy, right? Puka Nacua has one of the best catches the entire season in the second half of this game after it starts raining. He one-handed snags a ball on the DB and falls down to the ground, then gets up and runs for like 4 more yards, and then gets knocked down. Sets up a eventually turnover for the Rams, which, by the way, that kind of defined the entirety of this game. The Rams had 3 turnovers in this game, and 2 of the guys actually quite familiar with Matthew Stafford. I found that very interesting. One guy, the first one was Nick Scott on the second possession of, because the Rams scored an opening drive touchdown. Say it with me, opening drive touchdown. Their second possession got intercepted in the red zone by Nick Scott, and Nick Scott used to be a Rams player, so he used to play on the same team as Matthew Stafford. A couple plays later, A couple drives later, the Rams are driving again. They get intercepted by Mike Jackson, who used to play for the Seattle Seahawks, and when he was on the Seahawks as a defensive back, he played against the Rams 5 times before he played for the Carolina Panthers. So he's like really familiar with Matthew Stafford. It's very interesting how that all shook out. But yeah, it was for the most part, man, this game was amazing from top to bottom. The Panthers showed a side that we have not seen yet, right? Because the Rams, one of the best defenses in the NFL, they came out here and their plan was very clear. It's very simple. Stop Rico. They stopped Rico because they were like, no way Lil Bryce can beat us. And then Lil Bryce, unfortunately for the Rams, he woke up, hopped up out of bed, and turned his swag on. Don't know how he did it. Don't know if he'll do it again. It was amazing to watch. It was the best form that we've seen Bryce Young take so far as a NFL quarterback. We got to see him utilize all 3 of his wide receivers, Xavier Legette, Jake Coker, had a career game in this one, 74 yards and a touchdown. By the way, that one touchdown, he cooked our victim, I guess, this week, the game plan target this week in Emmanuel Forbes. And when I say game plan target, it's because it took me a while to figure it out, but I realized where the ball was going very quickly in the second half of this game. On 4th and 2, the Panthers go for it at like the 50-yard line to keep a drive alive, to go out there and take the lead. They're on 4th and 2. They snap the ball, and it seems like there's no hesitation whatsoever. They just wait for Tedero McMillan to cut upfield and get away from Emmanuel Forbes Jr., like every wide receiver did throughout the course of this game. He was the target. Everywhere Emmanuel Forbes Jr. was, the ball was not too far behind him. And it was tough because I'm sure it felt eerily reminiscent of what it was like when he was with the Washington Commanders, and that does suck because he did have 2 people catch touchdown passes on him in this game, and I think a good chunk of that has to. I don't know, man. It's so weird because he's had such a good season. Like, this has been his best season in the NFL, and then going into this game, and you have to imagine everybody else is going to try and do it. Target him in the course of this one, especially seeing how well Bryce Young was able to do it. They really turned it on in the second half of this game, and the turnovers, you can see the score there, 31-28. Is not that the turnovers really affected the Rams or anything like that. They still almost won this game. It did come down to the final drive, but on the Rams' final drive, it was like 3rd and 5 or something like that. They snapped the ball. Matthew Stafford's trying to scramble out of the pocket. Derek Brown strip sacks him, and then it's picked up by DJ Wanham, who, if you remember a couple years ago when I used to do the show a little less consistently, DJ Wanham was a D lineman for the Minnesota Vikings, and the game, his best game of his career was versus the Panthers. And I think that's why they signed him in the offseason, because he did so well against the Panthers. Dead serious, too. Go check it out. Anyway, this game, amazing top to bottom. The Panthers won without having Rico Dowdle blow up. They did have Chuba Hubbard go out there, have a bounce-back game. He looked like himself again, which means that the Panthers got yet another weapon that they can utilize and really count on. It's insane how well they played in this one and how completely they function for all 4 quarters as an offense and as a defense. Because if they can do that, they're going to be better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is crazy because it means that when they play the Bucs pretty soon. Hold on a second. Let me double check when the Panthers play the Bucs. Let's go 4. Yeah. Panthers play the Bucs December 21st. So, how many? That's 2 weeks from now, right? 3 weeks. It's December 5th right now. So, yeah. It's like 2 weeks from now. And then they play them again on January 4th. So they have not played each other at all this season. Insane. Great scheduling by the NFL schedule gods. Yeah, this was hands down for me personally, the Panthers and the Rams. That was the best game of the entire week, man. Not only because it was really competitive back and forth and stuff like that, but it was the Panthers. We saw a couple weeks ago when they played the 49ers, their offense let them down when the defense generated so many turnovers. And it felt like in this game, 31 points off 3 turnovers is not like the best ratio of all time, but to go out there and be that effective and then go out there and win the game on offense on the final drive and get that clutch throw to Jake Coker to ice this game away is massive, because it's something that we really haven't seen out of the Panthers throughout the course of this season. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm ready to go see my bed. You should be ready to go see your loved ones. I hope you guys had a happy Thanksgiving and all the other holidays that people celebrate as well. I appreciate you guys for listening, even if it's for just a couple of seconds. Hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook. Hit me up on Instagram at TheAshtonForever. I'll be back next Friday morning to break down everything that happened in Week 14 of the NFL season. All right, deuces. Oh, sorry. Drink your water. Tell the people in your life that you love them. Tell your enemies that they're your enemies. And most importantly, go home, Roger.